taking some time looking back and forth. That's why I'm doing Basics of the Faith this way. First guy that was a Christian thinker that thought about this was St. Thomas Aquinas. Of course, he was Catholic. He was born in 1224. He died in 1274. He was a Dominican priest. He was a theologian, and he was also a philosopher. And he was the first guy. Aquinas was considered one of the greatest Christian philosophers to have ever lived. Two of his most famous works was the Summa Theologiae and the Summa Contra Gentiles, which is the finest examples of his work in Christian philosophy. You need to read those treatises by Aquinas. This is what he did. In studying the Greek philosophers Aristotle, he concluded from common observation that an object that is in motion, listen to his argument, he's proving the existence of God. See, and since we're talking about, you had these 40 authors that wrote the Bible, what kind of men were these authors? Well, we're looking at Aquinas as a Christian philosopher. He had to come up with some reasoning, with some thought, with something as he postulated his view of God. He would say, he said that nothing can move itself, that everything that's in motion had to have a previous mover to move it. So therefore, if every object in motion had a mover, then the first object in motion needed a mover. So this first object is an unmoved mover called God. Now that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And Aquinas came up with the with these 5 ways of knowing this. The first way was the argument of motion. That's an a posteriori view, that something is moving something else. The second argument is a causation, that there had to be a cause behind this. I'm talking to you like this as Christians because you don't think enough. I'm talking to you like this because I don't want you going to that church, listening to that preacher, and that preacher is trying to tell you something, and you have no idea how you've arrived at knowing anything. The reason that I'm putting this thing together and that I'm taking this time and I'm blending all these things in the format, see, because it's not just, the first old Basics of the Faith was you just filling in the blanks. But you know what? God showed me something about that. You filling in the blanks and you don't know why in the heck you filling in the blanks. That's a pretty, I didn't want to curse, that was a pretty poor example of a Christian. So I want you to follow along with me as I talk about St. Thomas Aquinas. You may say he's Catholic. I don't want to hear about them. Hey, let me share something with you, bozo brain. Before there was a Protestant church, there was only one church, and it was Catholic. And the Catholics have had the greatest theologians that has ever lived. I know you think because you're part of the 21st century that the great theologians are the ones out today that write the books. What? Let me name a few. R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur, Alistair Begg, John Piper. Cut me some slack. These guys haven't written anything compared to these guys that I'm mentioning. When you look at the Catholic theologue, that was a man that wrote. They didn't have television, they didn't have computers. All they had time was to think and to contemplate God and to write about it. Now we're talking about revelation, right? How, one of these concepts of the Bible, how do we get this formulation of what God is? I'm going to finish this on the format if I ever stop rambling. But the point is, you need to know that there are other works that you need to look into as a student in order to find out what God's truth is. Now, let's go to what Aquinas said right here as I refer to my notes right quick. He said that there exist things that are caused. This is the causation of existence. There exist things that are caused, created by other things. Second point, nothing can be the cause of itself because nothing can create itself. That makes sense. Then the third aspect, he said, there can not be an endless string of objects causing other objects that exist. That's why when your grandma says, God talking with me, that doesn't make any sense. It never made any sense to me before I studied philosophy, and it doesn't make any sense now in the Christian church when these people get up and make these heretical statements. Fourthly, therefore, there must be an uncaused first called God. See what I mean? The third way that Aquinas talks about is contingent and necessary objects. There are contingent and necessary objects. We're still talking about revelation. If we're going to talk about the doctrine of revelation from the Bible, we have to look at it. Listen, revealed to what kind of a mind? And what I'm trying to share with you is that as Christians, we don't think enough. We don't think enough about these things. We want someone else to help us out. No. This way, Aquinas' third way, defines, and it'll be on the screen right there, it defines two types of objects in the universe. A contingent being is an object which cannot exist without a necessary being causing its existence. You are a human being. There had to be a necessary being to cause you, because you are a contingent being. You are here because of your mother and father. Your mother and father are here because of their mother and father. And it goes back, right down the line. Every being is a contingent being until you go back to the first cause. Who caused it all? We as Christians believe that in the beginning, God. See what I mean? So, if we're contingent beings, it goes back to an uncaused, uncontingent being. All right? So Aquinas believed that the existence of contingent beings would ultimately necessitate a being which must exist for all of the contingent beings to exist. Get it? Now God revealed to Aquinas' minds, in order for us all to exist, there had to be a big boomer contingent, no, non-contingent thing making us be. You guys aren't getting me. You got to feel me, and you got to see the essence of the beauty of a thinking mind as a Christian, because that's where the church, see, the church has been taken down the primrose lane because they don't think anymore. They're not thinking about that. So, this uncontingent being is what we call God. All right? Boy, I like his argument. The fourth way of Thomas Aquinas' argument is from degrees and perfection. Listen to me. Try to travel along with me now, because this is important. Degrees of perfection. St. Thomas formulated this way from a very interesting observation about the qualities of things. For example, one may say that there are two marble sculptures, and one is more beautiful than the other. So these two objects, one has a greater degree of beauty than the next. This referred to as degrees or gradation of a quality. Now you have to understand, what Aquinas has tapped in on, man, God gave him this beautiful revelation. That's why some people would look at black people and say, well, y'all ain't really human beings, because there's a greater degree of a human being when you look at an Anglo than looking at a Negro. See what I mean? See, so they can take these teachings of Aquinas and turn them into racist characteristics and justify one person being better than the next. That's why when you got a light-skinned black preacher and all the people on his staff is light-skinned blacks, see, he's saying, well, there's a gradation of quality that's better. Oh yeah, this happens in the church all the time. Happens in the church all the time. I married a Filipino, and people would always come up to me and tell me, oh, your daughters are so beautiful. And I would look at them and say, and thus your children are too. And they would look at me and kind of like, you're not serious. See? Because they believed in this thing right here. So what he was saying,